SEGA presents SEGA Talk, a podcast talking all things SEGA! With your hosts, George and Barry.
Look, it's a giant talking egg. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the master here. So what?
Hello and welcome to SEGA Talk number 58. I'm your host George, and with me, like always, is Barry.
Hello.
And we're going to start this podcast by shilling our Patreon, which if you want to support this show and what we do, the only way we kind of get paid or any money off of this podcast is by you guys supporting us. We're thinking of doing something different in the future. Who knows what yet, but maybe something that we'll add to the beginning of the podcast. But we have some tiers like reading your memories, getting early access to these episodes. So if you guys have a couple bucks to spare, that would be awesome. But let's talk about Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, which released in 1993. It was released in Japan as the Super Shinobi 2, which is a totally different title and totally different number, which is going to be part of the podcast. And it's the third Shinobi game, and it features Joe Musashi as the Shinobi. And it's the direct sequel to The Revenge of Shinobi. The game consists of Joe Musashi combating Neo Z, an evil organization that has returned once more to take over the world. What is your history with Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master, and how do you think it holds up today?
I honestly didn't have a big history with this game. I, like many other people, played the Revenge of Shinobi a lot. I think that was really the big one when it first hit the Mega Drive or Genesis. The original Shinobi, you'd have to be a Master System kid, which I really wasn't. So, I mean, I rented Revenge of Shinobi, but Shinobi 3, I don't know, I never crossed paths with it. Maybe my video rental store didn't have it. I don't know. I think the Shinobi games, unlike the Sonic games where it was very clear, like 1, 2, 3, like they made it very clear that there's a sequential series going on, or Streets of Rage 1, 2, 3. With this one, it's like Shinobi, Revenge of Shinobi, Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. And you're like, wait, where's Shinobi 2? Yeah. I think the naming conventions with them were kind of weak. I feel like it would have really benefited if we had a Shinobi 2, Shinobi 3, but then, like you said, we'll get into the Super Shinobi. So, yeah, I mean, outside of playing it years later on ROMs, emulated, and then the first really official release was the 3DS one. And I enjoyed it. It's a fun game. I'm looking forward to talking about it, but it definitely is not. It's one of those games where I could pretend to know all about it, but I'm not going to lie.
This game for me, it was like just like you, I played the Revenge of Shinobi first, way before this one. I didn't even play the first one until way later, but this one was one of those games where I just remember playing it. I don't know if it was like a friend's house. It's like one of those like, oh, I went somewhere after school and somebody had this like really awesome violent game. I remember it being in my head when I was a little kid. I remember it like shockingly violent. Like, I don't know why, but like when he slices them and that squirt of blood comes out. For me, when it was in my head, it was like, when you're a kid, sometimes you over-exaggerate the violence or whatever in a movie. So to me, it was like gallons of blood just squirting out of these people's like necks, right?
I know what you mean.
That left a really big impression, and I always remember how like smooth the game was compared to Revenge of Shinobi, where Revenge of Shinobi was kind of like I was a kid, I didn't really know about gameplay, but something about the way he like double tap move and the way he jumped and everything, the movement of the game, it felt like very precise. Like if you were precise enough, you could like look really sick pulling off all these kills in these like straight, like longer levels where it's almost like they added a little bit of Sonic to Shinobi on this one, right? He's a little faster, he has a little more moves, he's more stylish, way more actiony, and that's what I remember. Yeah. I really like this game. It's pretty sick. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like playing this game, years later, I'm like, man, I wish this was the one I played because, the original Shinobi, it never really clicked with me. Revenge of Shinobi, great game, but it's definitely slower paced. But this one, I mean, future games would kind of follow this game's template, if anything.
Yeah, and those templates it's like they're different games, really. Like when they made this one, they took some of the core aspects of it, but they kind of like ramped. It felt like they ramped everything up to like 11. Like, his movement's a little slow this time. He's faster. Oh, now he has his knife. He has more attacks. You don't even have to do shurikens anymore. Which is something that like was from Rolling Thunder. The first game was trying to copy, right?
Right.
So this kind of like broke that mold. So let's talk about some development, I guess. As I mentioned above, in Japan, the title was called The Super Shinobi 2, making it still a direct sequel, both sides of the pond, to The Revenge of Shinobi, which was called The Super Shinobi in Japan, which now it's getting confusing, right? The Revenge of Shinobi is called The Super Shinobi. This is called The Super Shinobi 2. But in America, we didn't have the Super Shinobi or that. So we just pretended that Shinobi 1 was 1, Revenge of Shinobi was number 2, and The Return of the Ninja Master was number 3. And first, what is your opinion on how America and Japan handled it? And second, what do you think is a cooler name? Revenge of Shinobi / Return of Ninja Master, or The Super Shinobi 1 and 2?
Well, I think the super naming convention just doesn't work because we had Super Nintendo and they use Super Mario Brothers and they use Super for everything, and it seems weird to have a Mega Drive game with Super in the title. I know on the Game Gear it was the GG Shinobi and then the GG Shinobi 2, which was kind of a thing because they also had GG Aleste, or Aliste, I forgot how you say it, and then GG Aleste 2. So it was kind of a naming convention over there. But over here, honestly, if I were to retitle them, I'd say Shinobi, Shinobi 2, Revenge of Shinobi, and then Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. Or Revenge of the Ninja Master, and then Return of the Ninja Master. You know what I mean? Like, I would have adjusted it a little bit. I'd probably also replace the Roman numerals with numbers. I think it's easier. Yeah. End of day, we can't change what they did, but I think the naming for all of them are just a little weak. And then as we move forward, they kind of screw up again, and the 3DS one's just called Shinobi. So it's like, and then the PS2 one's just called Shinobi. So it's like, oh, okay, so we're just not even going to try now. We're just going to title it the same way we titled the Master System one. So
that's one of my pet peeves when you're searching for research for these games. It's like, oh man, I got Shinobi from the PS2 stuff. Like, all right, pretty cool, but that's definitely not what we're talking about right now. It's also, I agree with you. It's funny that the Super Shinobi came out in 1989 in Japan. So like Sega of America sort of like dodged a bullet there with the Super naming, because like you said, Super everything became a Nintendo branding. Super Mario, I forgot what else they did. Everything, like it's like Super football games. Everything was like Super on the Nintendo, and I think Sega tried to adopt the Mega name. So I bet if maybe back then, if they had the chance in '89 to know that it was going to be called the Super Nintendo, they probably would have been, oh, this is called the Mega Shinobi. It sounds even stupid.
Right.
So I understand what they're trying to do in Japan. I mean, we'll talk about it right here. So while we discuss the naming conventions, one reason that Sega separated Shinobi from its arcade to console is to show the consumer that the Mega Drive could do its own type of games. While in America, the Revenge of Shinobi was marketed as a sequel to the first Shinobi because it was a big hit arcade game. The Super Shinobi in Japan was supposed to show off the power of the Mega Drive. Obviously, the title was a huge success. One thing you will notice now with this history of releases, the Revenge of Shinobi, aka the first Super Shinobi, came out in 1989, while Shinobi 3 / the sequel, Super Shinobi 2, didn't come out until 1993. During this window, we literally had the creation of Sonic Team, Sonic the Hedgehog, and 3 award-winning entries into the Sonic the franchise. By the time that Revenge of Shinobi got one sequel.
Yeah.
That wasn't the plan at SEGA. The sequel of Revenge of Shinobi was set to release in 1992. I still think it's a long time, right? But
Yeah.
still a little bit better. A year later, according to the magazines at the time, which showed a ton of photos and artwork that never made it into the final game, it seemed that SEGA wasn't happy with the work done in the 1992 version of Revenge of Shinobi, so SEGA did something crazy. They held it off for another year and kept it in development. This led to a game that didn't have any features that were promoted in magazines at the time, so they used a whole year of promotion that just wasn't in the game. Even if it came out in 1992, what would it mean to come out 3 years after the Mega Drive game? And why do you think Sega took so long in developing a sequel? Also, do you think delaying the game was good overall? I think it was.
Yeah, no, I think it was a smart move. It just kind of surprises me. It seems like something Sega now would do. But of course, game development is very different than it was then. Like back then, they'd spit out an Alex Kidd game, and then we talk about it 20 years later and be like, it was pretty bad. It just seemed like Sega had quality control for sure, but it just kind of surprises me that a game that probably was going to be fine still was delayed. So there must have been something seriously wrong. It kind of surprises me, though, because it's like, wouldn't you just kind of take Super Shinobi and make new levels and just kind of half-ass it and people be happy with it? I don't know.
It's very strange because like you said, like I felt like it came out in '89. You kind of felt like more people wanted the same thing. Like you could have, like you said, just polished off the rough edges and released it, but it kind of felt like, I don't know, maybe there were some disagreements at Sega. It felt like a lot of the team that made Revenge of Shinobi doing Streets of Rage had a lot to do with the hiatus, in my opinion, obviously. Because this team that made the third one is totally different team. It's like even the director was brought in 1992 to like restart the project, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, you could continue. You're researching.
Well, I was gonna say I think it's interesting too that between Shinobi 2 and Shinobi 3, we get an entire Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. Or Genesis, at least almost the entire Genesis franchise. You look at like Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3, you get the entire Yakuza franchise. And a lot of other things, but still, when you just compare it, it's just kind of surprising just how much happens between game sequels.
And not only that, how fast Sonic Team was working on these games that like just became like bigger and better and cooler, and you know what I mean. And like this team, like the Shinobi franchise, is in hiatus for those 3 years, and we also got a bunch of Streets of Rage games too. So very very interesting. So not surprising, the early prototype of the preview Shinobi 3 has been leaked online, and you can play it if you want. It's a strange little gem. We will discuss some stuff contained in the prototype real fast. I don't really want to go too much into it. I was actually going to write more about it, but then I was like, the whole episode's going to be about a prototype and the different levels that nobody really cares about. I mean, this is stuff that like some of the assets are used here, but I got this from YouTuber SILENIG. I don't know how to say his name. So if you look up his name, he has a Selenig. That's a word. And you can check out his channel on YouTube. He has the prototype footage of the beta. He has like a longer version, because the one I saw covered on what's that site called? The Cutting Room Floor. It only talks about up to stage 4, and this guy seems to have like one that goes all the way to a boss. So I didn't really know what to talk about on some of this stuff. So basically, if you look at it, one thing you'll tell right away is let me put the video up. How slow it is, like compared to if you see the forest level and the other one where you could run. You can still run and do the jumps and stuff, but like I don't know, it just feels a little more blocky and weird. And obviously, like the corners are all off. And like right away on the next level after this one, it's the four. I think this is like level 6 in the real game. So obviously they mixed around like right away, and it makes more sense in the way it's set up here because in the game, the real Shinobi game, you start off in level 1. It's a forest. Then you do a bunch of stuff, and then you get back to another forest that's on fire. And this one, it's the forest. Then the next level is the forest on fire. But they mixed around with the levels, so I don't know. I think that makes a little more sense here. But as you could tell, the level design is very like weak. Like it's just enemies, and it's trying to be more like the original Shinobi. Not a lot of platforming like the original. This game got later on. Not a lot of what else? There's no like auto scrolling levels, so it's a cool little beta to see how these how this works. You know how Sega did it. But have you ever played the prototype demo? And do you even, in retrospect, do you even care about prototypes? Do you think it's one of those things that's like, this isn't what we were supposed to play, so why are people so obsessed with it, you know?
No, I've never played it, but I see the appeal of prototypes, especially when it's, like actual elements of the game and not like a canceled concept or something. I think it's silly when people get hung up on like a canceled concept and they're like, oh, why don't we get this? And then they start throwing like other games under the bus. Like I see people did that when that Tales Treasure Tales was revealed, and then but the guy was like, these are screenshots, like these aren't even screenshots, these are like pixel drawings, there's no game here. And people go, oh, if we only got this. I'm much more interested in, for example, like when you play like early versions of Sonic 1 and it's the same team and you can kind of see the timeline of events and their how their game design skills changed and developed. I think that's cool. But I also think it's kind of lame when like people slap these on a cart and sell them on Etsy. Like, no, don't waste your money on that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's that's actually been a big market that I've been seeing a lot. You know what? I'm surprised nobody's reached out to us and said, hey, I'm doing a retro card. Can you guys do a review and send us a retro card? I mean, I would obviously accept it.
Then I'd love them. Yeah.
I'm a slut. Yeah. I'm a slut. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, dude, I love when people do this as long as I get it for free, obviously, and you guys pay. I'm just joking. But, like,
right.
I do agree. It's a little slimy that you're making money off these developers' work, and it's not like you're doing it for, like, a charity. It's for your own pocketed you're pocketing the cash, really. So, yeah, I mean, if you have one of those, like, EverDrives, you should, I guess you could check it out if you really want to see a work-in-progress game. And what prototype Sega played before they said, nuh-uh, we're going to have to shut this whole thing down. Sega didn't just let the original prototype team continue working on the game. Sega actually went out and hired new talent to move the project forward. One of these new people was Data East artist, I'm going to butcher his name, but like always, Tomoyoki Ito, who talked about his time working on Shinobi 3, which is his first project when he joined Sega. This interview was part of the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis Collected Works, which Barry loves, right? It's one of your favorite books. You promoted that when it came out.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. While Ito worked at Data East as an artist, at Sega he was enlisted as a director, where he tried to deliver a distinct filmic quality with better pacing and more environmental interactions. Even then, the team wasn't large, considering how popular the Shinobi brand was during the 90s. According to Ito, our development team consisted of 10 core members, including sound artists. In addition to this, we asked other members of staff to play test the game and also outsource some of the boss fights to an external development company. The team who also created the Super Shinobi was developing another game at the time, Bare Knuckle. So they were only involved in the Super Shinobi 2 as an advisory capacity. When you compare the production credits from Shinobi 3 to something like Streets of Rage 2, you see a huge disparity. For example, all artists on Shinobi 3 are listed as graphic designers and consist of 5 people, including Hideki Mariya. I don't know how to say his name. He he was the designer and art director for Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg. If you guys like that game,
Great game.
While Streets of Rage 2 had 13 different artists given different tasks, like object designs, backgrounds, and some main designs. I will say though, this game had a bigger team than Revenge of Shinobi before it, where it had no one as a artist or graphic artist. They were just called designers, and there was only 2 people, which I'm assuming this means designing the levels, designing the art for the levels, designing the art for the game. So
I guess so, yeah.
I guess that would make this bigger. It's a 10-person team, and 3 of them were musical composers. So technically, it was 7 core members, right? Because this game has 3 composers in it. So that's kind of crazy.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on the size of the development teams? It seems to be a medium-sized team for Sega at the time, but not quite as big as Sonic and Streets of Rage, of course. Do you think that sounds about right for this game?
That it seems small. When we cover Master System games on this show, typically that's the size of a Master System team, like a big one.
Wow. Wow.
So I don't know. It seems small to me. But I guess it makes sense. They took so long to make the game. You have to have a small team, I guess.
I mean, it's crazy that like you make. Imagine the kind of power you used to have in video game development, where like it was only 10 of you guys, so like any little decision you guys made, you had to like literally convince like a couple of other people to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm cool with that idea, and then you could just change the course of the game. So it's like, I guess he was the director, so he had the most power, but how hard was it to convince them to do things? Who knows? But it's funny because it's kind of it's a really wild game, and it's probably wild because they had so much control over it. But one of the first things the new team headed by Aito did was change every round from the ground up, while some rounds, aka levels, still used assets and other background settings from the prototype. Ito's team decided to focus more on movement of character. So, according to his quote, he said, "So we recreated almost every round, even though the game was already in the final phase of development at the time. The biggest change we made was the main character's physical abilities. Even though there was a variety of moves available, running, a jumping dive kick, and even the ability to wall jump, the level designs consisted primarily of enclosed spaces that didn't make best use of these actions. Even I felt confined when I played it. So I expanded the levels to be more than twice their original size, allowing players much more room to run and use the dive kick. In the end, I added greater speed and fluidity to the game." I guess at this point we can talk about the gameplay a bit, since he touched on it himself. He almost forgot talking about the blocking maneuver, which is another one that is a regular move in this game, and the jump kick, the double jump kick, where you could like do a weird like shuriken wave. I guess that's from the first one, so not technically new.
I like that one.
Revenge. Even though Shadow Dancer is my favorite classic Shinobi game, this game, in my opinion, really nailed down the speed for the franchise. What are your thoughts on the... Oh, yeah, we talked about this in the beginning. You obviously said it was great, but, like, anything about the blocking? Like, I thought the blocking... Like, some stuff you can block, so there's, like, some, like, trial and error when you play the game, but, like, I thought the blocking made the game a lot more, like... Man, it was so frustrating sometimes when you barely get clipped on things, so the ability to block some of these things last second was sick. They also had the katana block, but... What do you think about it?
I think this is a game that really finally brought Shinobi into the Mega Drive realm. I think when you look at the timeline of the games compared to the Sonic games, not to compare this to Sonic so much, but when Sonic 1 came out, it almost felt like a reboot of the Mega Drive Genesis. Like, you suddenly are like, oh, this is what it's capable of. And so all of those earlier games just seem so jerky and slow by comparison. So it was great to, see Shinobi finally kind of be elevated to what Sonic showed that the Genesis was capable of. And on top of that, to, put more moves in there, blocking, things like that. It just made sense. Like, this isn't the Master System anymore. This isn't a System 16 arcade game. You know what I mean? It's much more than that, and you can do more than that. So I agree with you. I think Shadow Dancer is a fantastic game. This one too is really great, but like I said, I didn't really grow up with it, so I can't put it in context at the time. But from what I've seen since, yeah, I think this really nails a lot of things.
I have to agree. Let's talk about the story, which obviously here at Sega Bits, Sega lore is 100% what we think about, we discuss. When the cameras are off, I call Barry at 3 a.m. and I get all scared and I'm like, "Did you see what Sega did? Sons of bitches! They changed the lore at Sonic again." But today we're going to be talking about Revenge of Shinobi. I mean, in the story, as we know, it continues the tradition of using Neo Zed, the criminal organization that appeared as Zed in the original game, which Sega says this, but like I looked at the old game and they just say criminal organization, never a name. Maybe it was always planned to be this and they just never put it in the game. I'll just take their word for it. So I'll let you read. I'm gonna let you read the United States story for Shinobi 3. I have a nice track in the back. Let me try to put the volume up, and it's a little spicier than the Wikipedia storyline. So
that's exciting. Okay, here we go. Warrior of the Shadows, Joe Musashi, codenamed Shinobi, of the Oboro School of Ninjutsu has long been in a struggle against the forces of evil. Years ago, the nemesis of the Oboro School, the Neo-Z organization, was defeated by Shinobi. Its leaders killed or put in prison, and its criminal activities stopped cold. Joe Musashi decides to return to Japan and recuperate after the battle in Neo City, but while he is training in the mountains of Japan, working to improve his already formidable ninja techniques, the Neo-Z leaders are secretly rebuilding their organization. Shinobi senses the evil power growing and starts to make his way to fight the new danger. Neo-Z's minions have been ordered to stop Shinobi at all costs. The rewards have been promised: riches and power, the punishment for failure, slow, agonizing torture, and death at the fangs and claws of Neo-Z's war demons. The stakes are the highest yet, and as Joe Musashi, Shinobi, you know that unless you succeed, the world will fall into the clutches of Neo-Z. You must not fail. That's funny.
It's a beautiful story, dude. Can you imagine the person at Sega of America that had to stay up all day writing this, like, here's the story, all right, and the guy's like hamming it up? Because I'm pretty sure, I think I don't know, I don't have a direct translation of the Japanese one, but I think it's more simplified. I think they very much hammed it up. I do like the little like screenshots they used right here to like tell the story. It's pretty funny.
Do you think, this is a little off topic, do you think Samurai Jack like ripped off Shinobi?
I've never seen Samurai Jack. I know it's going to surprise everyone because
it's like an ancient samurai guy, but then he goes to the future and fights robots and stuff. It just feels like a ripoff of Shinobi. I don't know.
I think Ninja Gaiden kind of has that feel too. I don't know who ripped off who there. And there's also like Striders, so I don't know what's going on in Japan with futuristic ninjas, but they seem to be obsessed with them over there. That's
a good point. Good point.
Yeah, I don't want somebody's going to comment on the video. Stupid Sega talk, you morons. Didn't you guys play Strider on the Capcom
Never heard of it.
Arcade board?
Never heard of it.
1.23.43?
No.
H3 remix featuring Dante. The plot seems simple enough, and it really is. It looks like all the developers did for the story was tell you that this crime syndicate is bad, and it moves on into the game, which isn't a huge deal back in the early 90s. But in 1989, The Revenge of Shinobi has more going on for it story-wise. First, having his clan being hunted down by Neo-Z, while the Oboro clan just wants to live in peace in the mountains. Having his master killed and showing his plans. He also had a girlfriend, which I thought was a little much, right? She gets kidnapped. I will say that it does make a bit more grim knowing that So in this one, he's the last one, the last ninja. And so he's the only one with the Oboro ninjutsu techniques, right? So that would mean his wife, his clan, everyone that he was supposed to be saving in Revenge of Shinobi are perished. And so he's the lone ninja now.
Wow.
And also in Shadow Dancer, it's supposed to be a direct sequel to the. Okay, now it gets really confusing. To the arcade, and in that one, you have a son who he takes over the Shinobi name. So it's like, do you think it's like one Revenge, Shinobi 3, and then Shadow Master after that, like the fourth one, and then it's like the new generation? Is that because like they all came out in different times? Like I think Shadow Dancer came out the same year as Shinobi, I think, or like the year after, some crazy. It's like really close.
Okay.
So it's weird, right? So what are your thoughts on the story of Shinobi, and do you think I'm looking too much into separate projects? Do you consider all these games the same storyline, or do you think it's just developers doing whatever they wanted at the time?
No, I think there are connections there. We saw this with Alex Kidd. A lot of them released very close together, like almost to the point where you could say like, what is it? Miracle World's the first game, but then the second game came out like so soon after that they must have been developing them at the same time. And still people, look for order. They try to number them. They try to fit them all together. Most famously, Fantasy Zone, Persona-sama on Twitter, like goes out of his way to like write a whole web page that ties all the Fantasy Zone and Space Harrier games together. And despite that, when we did our one of our episodes, they were like, no, there's no connection. The developer was like, no, Welcome to the Fantasy Zone, that has nothing to do with Fantasy Zone.
Who told you guys that?
So, but I think here there is definitely a connection. I think in Japan it just makes a lot more sense. Shinobi and then Shadow Dancer was the follow-up. The Super Shinobi and the Super Shinobi 2 are their own little thing. And you kind of see it with Sonic and Tails 2 in Japan, whereas over here it's Sonic Chaos, Sonic Triple Trouble. So we as Americans just kind of saw those as one-offs. Whereas in Japan, they encapsulated them as a little two-parter. So it at the same time, it does make sense over here that we did that numbering, but then it does make Shadow Dancer really stand out as kind of like, what is it, G-Lock? Am I right? Is that the one where it's like, it's an Afterburner game, but it's not because it doesn't have a title?
Correct. That's the one.
Yeah, so you see that a lot with Sega. They'll finally get their footing and be like, this is a franchise. And then they'll be like, G-Lock Air Battle. And people go, oh, cool, I like Afterburner. And they're like, no, this is Afterburner. We just didn't give it the name. And they go, oh.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know why they do that. It's like, to me, it's like, it's like, did somebody there go like, yeah, Afterburner was sick, but I think people would play it more. We call it G-Lock. It's like,
well, that's the thing. Yeah, like imagine if Nintendo was like, hey, we got a new game coming out. It's called Shroomer. And you go, oh, cool. Anyway, I like Mario. And they go, no, that's a new Mario game. You're like, why'd you call it Shroomer?
I'm glad they didn't try to do that with Sonic, where he's like, this is Sonic, but his name's actually something else. It's his son. They did that with Shadow Dancer, right? So it's like,
well, they almost did. They Sister Sonic was going to be Popful Male, what is that, a Saturn game, right? Or a Sega CD game was going to be reskinned as a female Sonic game. And they were going to do that, called Sister Sonic.
Oh. So let's move on real quick and talk, because I have to get through the rounds and stages in this game. There's only 7, so let's talk a little bit about it. I'm pretty sure the Revenge of Shinobi had 8. I did this on the notes, and I counted them, but I counted them by hand, so, the human mind is not the best thing in the world. And so, but both these games are actually a lot shorter than the Shadow Dancer, which had a whopping 15 levels. So, I mean, how awesome is that? But, I mean, I do think Shadow Dancer was very condensed, classic, what would you say, like, classic Shinobi, basically. It's like, they basically condensed the classic Shinobi to, like, the bare essentials, but, like, updated the graphics and added a new wolf mechanic, which is so sick, by the way. So, let's talk about the first... so first, the other one had 15 levels. So I just want to ask you, do you think it matters, or do you think the quality of the levels matter? Because I I don't know, like I like Shadow Dancer, but I felt like it kind of skimped on some of the level design compared to like Shinobi 3. And even though Shadow Dancer is my favorite one, and I like so many aspects of it, I still go like, Shinobi 3 is better design wise, but with its mechanics. It's like I'm in this weird place where I'm shaking these two titles and they're so different, you know?
No, I get that because I've always been a proponent of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist, but I'm always told Turtles in Time is better. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, it's more like the arcade game. It's got more stages. And I'm like, yeah, but Hyperstone Heist has the run button. And they're like, oh, well, so it's like...
You know what? I was actually playing that game not that long ago, and obviously there's some parts of the game where you're like, oh my god, they really skipped. But those levels that are like fully designed are so good. Like it's kind of upsetting they never finished that game. Like we may have to do a episode on it because it's such an interesting game because like it does so many things right, and then like the team like half-assed it in the end, sadly, because of times. Like you could tell it was gonna be something very, very, very good.
That will be a Sega Talk someday. That was like my core collection growing up, along with Ghostbusters and Dick Tracy and Sonic. Like it's a big game for me.
I used to play a lot Turtles in Time, but I agree. Even somebody that played mostly the Super Nintendo one, the button on it makes it so much nicer because I always effed up the double tap thing. It's like, did I do it right? Oh, sometimes you wouldn't do it. It's just easier to just tap a button, and it also my thumb hurts sometimes on those D-pads. I think I hit it too hard, so double tapping it just makes it hurt even harder, especially now that I'm like older, So let's go into the first round finally. The first round we have here is called Zed's Revenge. And this footage is by a YouTuber called Carls493 who played the whole game, and he broke it down by level, thankfully. And this is probably the game's most iconic level, mostly because most gamers aren't very good and can't get too far. And every time they die, which will be a lot, you have to replay it every time. This level is actually really, really easy, but it shows you a lot of the in-game mechanics early through various characters that you have to beat them a different way. Also, really open and allows you to run and dive / enemies, which is really fun. The ideas and narrative is that Masashi is coming out of the mountain home where he is retired, taking down Neo Z assassins on his way out. It has like a little cave part to it. It's a sick level, but it really shows you have to have patience sometimes in this game. You can't just go in there slashing. The little leaves in the beginning of the level when you're outside is pretty sick. I always thought that was really iconic and really made it look like a movie. Anything you want to say about this level that I haven't mentioned before we move on to the next one?
No, it's beautiful, iconic. I do have to ask, and I don't know if we'll get to it later, but in All Stars Racing Transformed, did they base it off of this game?
It's actually the 3DS one, so I didn't add that because it's supposed to be. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be it says Joe Musashi, but the design looks like the 3DS one. It is Joe Musashi though.
Okay.
But his design looks more like the 3DS one, I would say, than this one.
I was just curious.
He doesn't have the little the little Christ little belt buckle thing on his forehead. The crown. Yeah, so. He's not the Mordor. Let's see. The next one is called Secret Entry. In this round, it has Musashi on a damn horse taking down kite-wielding ninja assassins. This is pretty iconic in the beginning. This is like an auto-scrolling level, which was really popular in arcade beat-em-ups at the time, like TMNT and Battletoads. I felt some of these franchises... Dick Tracy, yes. I felt like some of these franchises abused the auto-scrolling levels at the time and made them harder. But I thought Sega made a very easy and fun one here, and it's kind of hard to die if you're paying attention. After this, Joe reaches a high-tech facility. Let me go put that over here. This is the one people die a lot, by the way. You reach after this, the high-tech facility, but basically Joe starts finding out that there's bigger plants here where they have a huge facility. That's supposed to be the narrative here. This is actually a pretty hard part, the little facility, because there's a lot of like timed platforming. This is like the first time they give you platforming where if you screw up, you're dead basically. And there's
there's a Mega Man game that does this, isn't it? Like the first stage is almost like the ending, where
there's a few of them that do it. Yeah, for X.
Yeah, and then Sonic Unleashed kind of did that too. I like when games do that. I like when games like present you with the ending at the intro, and then you're like, "Whoa, this is epic." That's pretty cool.
This is pretty epic because it's the second stage. You're already on a horse. You get like an auto-scrolling level like in Ninja Turtles, and you're in this big high-tech facility. So it already feels very epic early on. The third level is called Body Weapon, which is like the weirdest name, right, for a level. But it makes sense when you see it. Most people I know didn't get past the second round. So a lot of people I know weren't good enough at the game to make it here to this level. Mostly because the second round has some very hard, obviously, platforming areas. This stage is where stuff gets really weird as you find a biological weapons laboratory where Joe fights off mutated brains and muscular ooze, leading to a super boss fight with the hideous Hydra, which is really iconic because it was used in marketing promotions. And to me, this level kind of reminded me of like Super Metroid, kind of like they try to do the alien brains and stuff. But,
yeah.
And then if you get all the way to the end, it's like this. The bad guy in this is so cool. The last guy, the Hydra, it's like this really cool Genesis effect where it's like wavy. They did a really cool job with this. This is a really sick level. If you play the game, try to get this far because it's very worth it. The boss fight I thought was pretty easy, so it's not that challenging. I thought outside of the platforming.
The tanks are really cool. I like those little bodies in the back. I don't know if you've watched. I mean, no spoilers, but The Mandalorian. They're starting to show little tanks, and they got like you see, he's in his tank. So got little Snokes back there. Maybe I don't know.
Maybe it's
maybe the Emperor. Maybe this is Star Wars crossover. Maybe
Electric.
I'm just gonna have him sit here with me.
I think I skipped. Okay, no, I got it. All right.
Destruction.
Okay, I skipped. I didn't get the link to this one. Let me get it. Sorry. Oh, wait, it's the wrong one, right? I don't have Destruction on there, do I?
No.
All right, let me put it on. Sorry. Round.
I can entertain people with this.
Do it.
See, he's dancing. I'll show you what he looks like underneath. So if you're watching this on video, you can see he's got little white pajamas.
I got it now.
Okay, great.
This is another great auto-scrolling stage, which I wish they had more of. Like, I usually don't say that in games because I think the few auto-scrolling stages I really love was obviously the TMNT, and this one is probably the two that stand out the most. I hated in Battletoads because they sucked. Like, they made them so hard. Screw Battletoads. Anyway, this is another great auto-scrolling stage, which, like the second round stage, this time is only Joe Masashi surfing on a goddamn surfboard, just like Escape from LA, one of the cinematic classics of all time.
Yeah.
Remember that CGI? Something I didn't know is that this stage is supposed to be near Joe's home, a great river he lives by, where Neo Z has made a factory specializing in robotics. The end boss is obviously a robot with lasers and machine guns, because why the hell not, right? So very interesting stage. It like changes up, you know. I mean, do we really have to say much about a ninja that like is surfing like at this point, really?
No,
like, I think that
Surf
speaks
Ninjas.
for itself, right? Exactly, like the movie Surf Ninjas Must Die, right? Is that the movie called?
Or Surf Nazis Much? Yeah, I just got that on Blu-ray. Great game, great movie. And then Surf Ninjas on the Game Gear. Maybe we'll do that a Sega talk on that someday.
Oh my God, are you serious? You really want to do one on Surf Ninjas, the best movie ever made, promotional crossover, epic?
Bend your legs, put out your arms.
Is that a free movie? Like, can you just watch it and do whatever?
It should be. It should come like, you know, like every American citizen should just get that movie for free when you're born.
Round 5 is called Electric Demon. This stage starts off with a really cool forest on fire look, which is obviously used from the prototype that was supposed to be the second stage. Here we have our hero in an infernal forest trying to reach a heavy guarded weapons facility as he tries to get in not just to in Neo Zed, but also to get out of the flaming inferno. So you're like escaping the flames and trying to get into this like weapon laboratory while it's guarded. Inside the factory, you will fight to the top floor, only to be confronted by a large Godzilla samurai robot boss. Yep, you can't make this stuff up, really. Like,
Right.
so this is already getting towards the end. You know, you got the cool set piece in the front, and it transitions into like a laboratory again, and then the end boss, which I might as well just skip to for the viewers at home, so they can see the cool Godzilla boss. This was also used in promotion, I remember, if I remember correctly, like magazine shots or something. The Godzilla robot.
It reminds me of the end boss in Knuckles Chaotix, where it's like the Metal Sonic, but he's all like red and big, and there's fire in the background.
You think they were?
Cool. And I love how there's a ton of them behind there too. There's more of them. They're all
You think Robotnik is behind this, or at least his grandfather or something with Zed, like in the past, you know, or in the future? Is this
Gerald
Link?
Robotnik? I like it.
Son of a bitch.
Yes.
Imagine if they used that robot for no reason in the Sonic thing. That'd be sick. I don't know why. I just think
Why not?
Sick. Why not?
I think they should make a game called Sonic Into the Segaverse, and each stage is Sonic entering another Sega franchise.
Oh, dude, that'd be pretty. So it'd be like Alex Kidd, right? Isn't Alex Kidd supposed to break the fourth wall? Yeah.
Yeah.
Round 6. We're gonna be talking about
traps.
We have 2 more stages to talk about, and we're still talking about other stuff. We're gonna get all sidetracked. Round 6, traps. Godzilla, the boss fight sends us hurling down a gorge, falling as bloodthirsty assassins try to kill our hero. In this stage, Joe must jump from falling rocks and avoid falling down from the screen, killing assassins, and to try to get those precious boxes of items on the way. This is kind of an annoying level because, man, you fall, it's a life, and you only have a few of them, so you better be perfect.
Do you think Kamiya likes this stage? Because it reminds me of Bayonetta.
Yeah, he probably did. He probably got a lot of his, like, yeah, this very much is like a Bayonetta stage. Even the moon in the back, like, look how sick it's framed in the middle of the screen. Like, I bet he played this as a kid and he had a huge boner, and he's like, I'm going to make a game where instead of a man, it's a woman, though. He promised that day. You get in this game, you get a little mid-level boss fight with this, like, weird, like, mutant, like, I don't even know what it is. What do you think this is? I mean, are you watching I'm
watching it. Yeah, I have no idea what that thing is.
It's like he has gym shorts on and like samurai sandals and like this cool vest, and he has wings. He's like a mutant hybrid thing. And then there's this like boss fight here. They call this guy the Ninja. Okay, so you go into this building right here reminds me, like, when you get inside this building, there's fog. But this building reminds me of a building from, like, The Revenge of Shinobi, like the first stage or whatever, with the spears on the ground and all that.
Yeah.
So this gives me flashbacks to The Revenge of Shinobi. But the boss here, they call him the Ninja Master. So are you not the Ninja Master, or are you both the Ninja Master? And his boss fight is pretty sick because it's in the dark, and he's opening these doors, and there's 2 of them, and you have to hit them. You have to find a way to hit one of them. I think it looks sick, but like I just don't get it. Why they just call this guy the Ninja Master? I'm like, I thought you're the Ninja Master.
Is that the American naming? Because I bet there's something here that we're missing. Like, I'm sure if you were Japanese, go, oh yeah, this is like a kabuki reference, or, you know.
I actually went online, and this was from a Wikipedia entry, so I wasn't taking it too seriously. And then I went to I have the game right here. Physical copy, and I went into the manual, and there is no names in the American version, and I don't think there's no names in the game while you fight them, so no American names. So I don't know if that's just a mistranslation or somebody just put that on Wikipedia. Regardless, that's the boss here. The last one, the 7th stage, Let me put it on the video. Okay, so this is like Sky Fortress basically for Shinobi. So this time you end up in the sky. So like I said, Sky Fortress, it reminds me a lot of it. You're dangling off of ledges and stuff, and then eventually you'll start climbing up. It reminds me a lot of Sonic, obviously. And then when you finally make it inside, it's a more typical Shinobi 3 stage. Eventually you'll make it to the end and fight the last boss. And I'll skip a little bit of this because it's like a pretty long. It's like a 10-minute stage, so it gets into the regular Shinobi inside the fortress. It has cool lightning. Like there's nothing really big. I mean, I like the backgrounds they usually do where they're moving mechanics, but this stage is very like Sky Fortress. But the last boss is so sick. This thing gave me nightmares, dude, when I first saw this thing. But there's like. It has this weird effect, right? This like really groovy effect. His name is supposed to be called the Shadow Master, and it has like this 3D grid background that like waves around, and there's like these faces and torment in the back, and that used to scare the crap out of me. Look at that,
the
dude.
The faces look like James Rolfe from Angry Video Game Nerd.
It is. When he was a kid, he was all the tears.
Because he's got a little bit of a gap in his teeth, and he's going. Doing the nerd, like, oh.
Too bad he was a kid, so it's not him. But, I mean, they probably got his old VHS tapes when he was whining about the Genesis, and they used it. They scanned it.
Yeah, that's Angry Video Game Nerd back there.
That's him, dude. It's scary. He used to haunt me in my dreams when I was a kid. What do you think? I like this boss fight. I mean, it's hard, but, like, I really like the way they use the effect in the back. It's a little... you could tell they really like that.
Trippy.
You could tell they like that effect, and they're like, "That's so cool." They didn't even put a foreground. They're like, "Whatever, dude. They just fight in the air. Who gives a shit? It looks sick." And it changes colors and stuff. It's really cool, but that's the stages. Not that much, as you could tell. So, whatever, right?
Right.
Let's talk about the music, right? So, the Revenge of Shinobi soundtrack became iconic, especially after Yuzo Koshiro's work on Streets of Rage. I think a lot of people came. I mean, it was iconic, but I think Streets of Rage made him so iconic that like and was more popular than anything else that people went back and started praising even harder the Revenge of Shinobi soundtrack. So like, who knows what if it would have been in such a high regard if he didn't do Streets of Rage. I don't know. I mean, I have to look back and see how people thought about it, but I noticed that like old reviews, people don't really talk about soundtracks. Like when they review games back then, it was like 3-paragraph reviews, and it was like the basics, you know?
Right. I mean? Or they would just be a jerk, like the Ghostbusters one. Remember, they were like terrible music. I'm like, what's terrible about it? Maybe you have a Genesis 3 and you just always have terrible music.
Well, that's true. Sadly, Yuzo Koshiro did not come back like a lot of the Revenge of Shinobi team. And didn't do this title. Instead, the work was moved on. He moved on to Streets of Rage and then, became a more popular IP than Shinobi. I mean, they're both popular, but one's obviously way larger. Sega actually hired 3 composers for the title, which included Hirofumi Marasaki, Morihiko Akiyama, and Masayuki Nagayo. I don't know how to say that guy's name, but Marasaki's first project was Shinobi 3, and him and the director actually became friends, and like after this they like worked on Clockwork Knights 1 and 2 and Dragon Force, while Masayuki he actually worked on Sonic Team for some stuff like Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and he was part of the Sega Sound Team, which is a group of composers, because Sonic doesn't have one composer, right? I mean, it doesn't have one lead composer, but it's like a sole team, right, of people that are like contributing. So this is kind of like, I guess, the Shinobi sound team, maybe a little bit. One thing that people praise the music for is the change in composition compared to Yuzo Koshiro. The team didn't go out to try to copy Yuzuro's catchy tunes. They tried to create more complex tracks, taking more advantage of what the Mega Drive could do. They also aimed at making a more cinematic sound. The sound was also praised for using better digital voice samples, something that like it became a meme on the Sega Genesis. Like everybody was like, "Hey, remember on the internet for a while, everybody was talking shit about how terrible voice samples sounded on the Genesis," and it like
I remember
Every
that.
single
Yeah.
YouTuber had to like make a big video or like make jokes about it in all their retro reviews.
Yeah, go play Jeopardy. It sounds great. You can hear Alex Trebek. He goes, sorry? And he goes, correct!
The
And it
best
sounds
way.
beautiful. It sounds like he's in the room with you. I miss Alex Trebek, so I just play Jeopardy on the Genesis, and it's like he's back.
I don't want to speak for her, but I heard I don't even know his wife's alive, but I heard she doesn't even watch her 4K transfers of her home movies. She actually just plays the Genesis game and puts on the headphones, and it sounds like he's in the room. That's what she said, not me.
Correct.
So that's
Wow.
correct. Hey, she's right there on the debug menu, just listening to all the sounds.
That's amazing.
I will say that the Shinobi 3 soundtrack is actually really, really good in its own way. So we're going to play a few tracks. I actually have the vinyl, and we'll talk about it when we... Actually, I'm not going to bring it out because it doesn't matter. We're just going to listen to it on here. Let me get the tracks up. I don't know. First one we're going to listen to is called Whirlwind. This is actually more of the popular tracks I always hear people talk about. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Very grindy. Like, that's something that Genesis did well. That I really like this track. This is a really sick track, I think, for this game. So, I mean, personally, I think it still has melody to it. I think people were saying, I mean, like, I know Yuzo Koshiro had more like dance music and things like that. Definitely not the same. The next one I'm going to play just to have is a heavier track called Shadows. I'll play a little bit of it. I really love the drumming on this. The drum sound, it sounds heavy.
Genesis always had great drums.
Oh yeah, and this is really one of the soundtracks that kind of really took a good advantage of it. If you have a good RGB connection with like a good sound, Genesis can sound really, really good. It's crazy. And that's actually one of my things I hate about people when they talk crap about the Sega Genesis sound. It's like, bruh, there's some stuff where it's very, very good. But what do you think about the changing composers for this title? And in hindsight, do you think it was a great move to have Yuzo move to a more, I guess, I just kind of felt like, I mean, to me, I felt like he kind of embodied more of the sound of Streets of Rage with, you know what I mean? Like that street weird, like
Right.
you'll have like this random like track randomly, one of his soundtracks where it's like groovy and you're like, wait, what the hell? This is like jazz pop. What is going on here? And then it's like, okay, he just wanted to do whatever he wanted to do, right? And so,
Right.
yeah. Do you think
I
that
think it's
Yuzo,
smart.
Yeah, do you think Yuzo overshadowed the soundtrack and that's it?
I think he has a tendency to, and when it doesn't deliver, people get really upset. Like people go,
Yeah.
he did the music for it. It didn't slap, you know. And it's like, well, they all can't slap. But like in this case, like it's nice to see other people shine. I know that he can kind of like, it's kind of like with Hideki Naganuma. Where people will like bother him constantly about Jet Set Radio, and like I'll be honest, I love his music. He was never like the guy of Jet Set Radio. Like there were so many composers, and so I'd always love him to return for another game. But I think people need to remember there's a lot more to the soundtrack than just him. And I think with Yuzo Koshiro, he has a tendency to kind of overshadow everyone else. So
I think it was on purpose. Back then, it was like he was
Yeah.
trying to make a name for himself, and it actually worked out probably better for him in the long term.
Oh,
to do that.
absolutely.
But it sucks for like these people. Like these guys didn't have their name on the game on the bottom like Yuzo did. So it's like it sucks for them where they're like, I think Yuzo had his name on the game, so people remembered it. And so when they went and looked at the soundtrack, they're like, they knew him by name, and he's like one of the few Japanese artists to have that. And so it's kind of hard to like, I guess, escape that. But let's talk about the promotional. Sorry, go
Sorry,
on.
I was just going to say, was he one of Sega's first celebrities then? Because it wasn't really until, Billy Hatcher that they really started putting, like, Yuji Naka's name on the cover of the game.
You know what? I would guess, like, magazine-wise, I don't think he was as big a celebrity, but as a, like, I guess artist, yeah. I mean, Sega Sound Team Sega Sound Team had, like, concerts, but it was still, like, there's property of Sega, the Sega Sound Team. It wasn't like they were like promoting each person by themselves, you know. And I guess that's something they do now. You know, we see these concerts going around right now in Japan that were canceled, most of them. But yeah, you want to talk about promotional materials?
Yeah, you want me to do this section?
I could do the section. I was just wondering if you wanted to say anything else about things. So.
I want to talk about promotional materials.
All right, the first one we're talking about is a few ads for the Japanese release, which kind of just featured art for the game. We don't really know Japanese, so it's kind of hard to know what they were kind of conveying here. So the first one is a double page ad that was in one of those Japanese magazines. And this one is promoting Golden Axe 3 and the Super Shinobi 2. They have the screenshots on the side. Personally, obviously, the Super Shinobi 2 is way better than Golden Axe 3, in my opinion. I think a lot of people's opinion. Interesting is that the U.S. art, or not the U.S., but the Europe art is basically used here, and Shinobi has its own art, obviously, here. And here's another ad real quick. I think this next one's a little better. It's a single-page ad that was taken out just for this. It has this weird 90s, how do you say that background? Like, I don't even know, like that print look, like that's like a marker.
It looks like Zubas, those pants.
There you go. And yeah, so it's just an average ad, very small pictures. Nothing that really pops. It's just kind of like they slapped all this stuff together and they put text and little pictures on it. It's an ad, whatever. What do you think about these two ads and like the overall visual presentation here? Like, we don't know what it says, right? But like as a passerby, let's say you're a kid, you don't know how to read anything. You see this,
right.
Or you see with these two. Do you think that these two ads are good enough to capture you, or is it not enough?
I think they're both kind of weak. I think the first one, though, if just not knowing what it's saying, if I was a kid, I'd go, "Oh, cool! This looks fun. Skulls, cats, ninjas."
Hell yeah!
It is weird, though. It kind of makes them seem like they're the same game, but it's two separate games. The art quality is very different. Like, not to bash Golden Axe 3's art, but it's not as good as the Super Shinobi art we have here.
Oh,
screenshots very tiny, which is always a problem for me. I think, show off the screenshots. And then in this one, the second one, like this, who's this little guy? It looks like Segata Sanshiro, but like clearly well before him.
Oh, you're talking about this little Japanese. I think it's a different game where you play. It's a sumo wrestling game that they're also advertising for the Mega Drive.
Oh, I see it down there. I see it.
Yeah, it's like an ad within an ad, right? So Sega's like, oh, we could do the Shinobi one. Oh, yeah, but we also have to promote the Super Samurai game. Just put it in the same ad.
Right. I don't like when they do that.
No. It's like, give the game some promotion. Jesus, show us some respect. But I think you'll like the American one, maybe. I don't know. It has more going on with the pages. This is a 2-page spread that was done by, obviously, Sega of America. This ad leaves a lot of negative space on purpose to try to lure the reader's eyes to the small growing images that sells the reader that this is a bigger game with more action, more magic, more levels, more thugs in the ad. This is also part of Sega's iconic welcome to the next level marketing, but it does sort of lie in the ad because I think Revenge was technically had more levels, so this did not have more levels. What are your thoughts on this ad compared to the Japanese one? And obviously Sega was always known to like lie a little bit if it meant selling a few units, so I'm not giving them too much shit because if that meant they sold 10 million copies, that's fine with me.
Yeah, no, I like this one. Like you said, you pointed out the negative space. I think some people might dislike that. I know in my own practice, when I would make things and put negative space, people go, oh, there's so much more space. We can put more things in there. Oh, we'll get the copywriter to write up a whole other part. And I'm like, no, it's intentional. Please stop. And I think here, just from reading magazines as a kid, there was so much of that going on. They had to fill every corner. So when you got to ads like this, it was like kind of a breath of fresh air. You got some time to breathe, and you're like, oh, cool, a new game. And here I think it's kind of weird how it goes smaller and gets bigger, especially when I think the Godzilla image is pretty sweet and it's like the second smallest one.
Yeah.
But I get what they're going for here. It just seems kind of weird how it would go like more action, more magic, more levels, more thugs, more Shinobi. It doesn't really... It doesn't flow that well because it starts up here and then the text is like to the right of it, below it, above it, and then above the cover art, which has like and then it has welcome to the next level up the spine, and then it does the stupid like, it is the honorable thing to do, where you're like talking like Master Splinter or something.
I just noticed that though in this cover art, the cover art here is different from the official cover art. That tiger,
you're right.
The tiger is not in the official art. It's just like blank right there.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. But this one's fine. I like it. I wouldn't make it, but if I was the art director, I'd say, play around with this and that. But then again, sometimes you look at things like this and you have issues with it, and then you tell the person to fix the things, and then they realize they can't fix them because, it just works this way. So
the next bit we're going to talk about is this is a very weird thing. Like, I try to do more research into this trailer I have. We'll play it right now in a little bit, but okay. Shinobi 3 never got a TV spot, right? So, which I consider to be a very tragic thing because it's such a hot franchise. I mean, I think it needed some push. I did find this 1993 trailer that is said to be sent out by SEGA of America, but it's uploaded to this like YouTube channel called Video Detective that's just like re-uploads trailers. I looked through the other SEGA stuff he had, which it seems like he's just uploading these old VHS tapes that SEGA used to send out to consumers.
Interesting.
No idea if he did the voiceover for this. I try to. It sounds like it just sounds like something from the 90s. We'll watch it and you could tell me. We could talk about it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure you've never seen this. So.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I'm excited.
I edited this. This is my channel. That's what you're gonna say. Let me turn on the volume and play it.
As Shinobi, you've been in a long struggle against the forces of evil. After the Battle of Neo City, you've come back to Japan to train. The Neo Z leaders are secretly rebuilding their organization. Neo Z leaders have been ordered to stop you at all costs. You know that unless you succeed, the world will fall into their clutches. The stakes are the highest you've ever faced. You must not fail in Shinobi 3 on SEGA.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not really that much going on here in this trailer anymore. What do you think about this? You think this is something Sega would send out to promote the game? Sounds like
I think this might be something they'd send out to stores to sell them on it. It probably was like a VHS tape of trailers that they would play for themselves. This is not something you'd put on TV. Maybe something you'd see at trade shows. But then again, they typically would just have a demo out and have someone there to talk to you. Yeah. But who knows? You know, this probably trade shows or more likely mailed out to people. But yeah, you would. The runtime too, you wouldn't see this on TV at 47 seconds and like that weird pause on the title screen where it just sits.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. Maybe it's like on this. They played it in stores or something in the background when you go to GameStop or whatever.
Possibly.
I was going to say, what do you think about the guy's voiceover? I think we would have done a way better job. Like, come on, dude, you sound so weak. Come on, dude.
Sound like they got him a $5 or something, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever the equivalent was back then, $1.
So this last bit we're going to talk about is controversial. All right. We know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but we do it all the time, and we used to do it all the time when we were kids. So let's look at both the covers of the American and the Japanese, and then we'll discuss what we think is a better cover. I just want to say that the American cover is by Greg Winters, which you told me because I didn't know. I was looking for it on the internet, and it's like his name is almost listed nowhere. He did Streets of Rage, Beyond Oasis, Galaxy Force 2, and Final Fight 3 covers for the West. He did this one, obviously. So they changed the cover for the West. The only one. What do you think about his art? His art is like, some people love it for nostalgia reasons. Some other people say that he's not the best artist in the world. That he has this weird look to his characters, right? So, what do you think about the American Shinobi 3 cover?
I think it's fine. The costume looks black, which is kind of strange. And I think it was a strange choice too to go with the red, given you knew that Genesis would have red on the spine. It's a little too red all over the place. This isn't on him. This isn't on Greg, but I don't like the Shinobi logo here. It looks lazy. They just took a font and like squashed and stretched the letters. Like you have the Shinobi logo. It says Shinobi. It's the gold logo. Everyone knows that, but. Yeah. I guess they didn't want to embrace it. So it just makes the games look even more disconnected when you consider not only is the logo different and the numbering is goofy, but then you have the red case, which the other two didn't. Like, one thing I will say, I look at people's Mega Drive libraries and I'm so jealous because I'm like, oh, they look so like everything fits. The logos are in the same place. It just looks so pretty. And then you look at our, dirty American Genesis libraries, and it's like a mix of black and reds and checkerboard patterns and like grids. It's just no consistency.
None. I do agree with you that I think Sega changed it because we'll talk about the Japanese one, but like I think they changed it because they wanted it to stand out more on shelves, and they thought the red will make it stand out even more. And I agree with you. It's too much red. Like I said, it looks like Joe Rogan kind of in his new studio where it's all red. It's like, come on, dude. Too much red, my dude. You got to tone down the red. I know you're an angry guy, but... And here is and then like the total opposite, the Super Shinobi 2 cover, which is like in the night, like a neon bridge in the background. And we have Joe Musashi that looks like he's hurt, kneeled down with a sword in the defensive position, which kind of makes sense in this game since blocking is a regular move here. And he has a sword that he uses a lot. In the back, we have more of the art, which is just backgrounds and lightnings, and there's a big moon. And the art is really, really awesome. We did not find out who did the art for this because we looked for it, but we just didn't find it. I'm sure someone knows online, and they'll probably be like, stupid Sega.
Right, well...
morons. What do you think about this?
Like when I looked for the artist's name, I have the Sega TV video game art book that came out. I think at the time this game actually came out. It's an art book that came out in 1993. And when it came to the Shinobi titles, they would just credit Sega R&D as the artist. So it's them kind of being shitty to their own artists because all the other ones get credited, like the names are in there. It's no secret, but with the Shinobi one, they didn't credit them. But I like this one. I think it's really cool. It looks like he's sitting on like a bridge or something, and the moon's back there. It's very pretty. I love this aesthetic that they had going on back in the day with the Mega Drive art, and it's just such a shame it didn't carry over. But then again, there is a charm to the Greg Winters and the who's the guy who did the Sonic ones? I forgot his name, but there's a charm to it, and Greg Martin.
Yeah.
But I'd never
record. Give me a sec. Oh.
But I'd never change it. Like there are people out there who will look at like the design of Sonic and they go, "Oh, I wish we never got butt-faced Sonic." And I'm like, first off, don't you ever call him that, and secondly, like, that's your childhood right there. If you grew up with that, like, that's yours. Own it. Love it. Sure, as an adult, find the problems with it, but you're not going to change it. We're not going to go back. So be happy.
Do these Sonic fans kiss their moms with their mouth? That mouth? Like, chillax, dude. Show some respect for the Sonic. all Sonics are equal. All Sonics are beautiful.
Yeah.
Even American chubby Sonic.
So I like
Sorry,
these.
yeah.
I was just gonna say I like how different they are. It's fun.
I like obviously like the Japanese one better because the aesthetic is just so much better. But I think it just sucks because it's like the American one wouldn't have been like a bad cover or anything. It's just the Japanese one's that good that it's like kind of like why even bother getting someone to do a new piece of art, you know? But that's just
it's
my
art.
opinion.
Like it's not like action figure box art like the Shinobi 3 American one is. It's like legitimate art. You look at this and there's real talent behind it. Yeah, exactly.
Poster. Yeah. So thankfully, we're going to be talking about the legacy of this game to close it up. Thankfully, the people at defunctgames.com has put together some of the old reviews that give us sort of a picture of what people thought about this game back then. The first one we're going to talk about is the Game Pro review from August 1993, which was a popular magazine back at the time, which if people that are young don't know here, there was a thing called a magazine and people used to write in them and we used to read them sometimes. Just look at the pictures, really. And they gave this game a perfect 5 out of 5. And they said, the true Ninja Master has returned to the Genesis and it's about time. Shinobi 3 proves that SEGA of Japan is still on the cutting edge of side-scrolling excellence. This cart plays as smooth as fine Asian silk. Like Sega Superstar, Montana, and Musashi, this game is no ordinary Joe. Slasher Quan.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he really wanted to make that Joe Montana joke. You know, kids are not going to know who Joe Montana is, but he was a popular football player that used to sling the pigskin back in the good old days. I remember. Yeah. Sega had a brand of games with him. It was supposed to be their Madden, but yeah. Back in the day, EGM was my favorite magazine, and thankfully they gave the game an impressive 9 out of 10. Shinobi is back for the 4th time, and he is an all-out winner. It's called Shinobi 3, dude. This time, with more moves, more weapons, and flawless control, Shinobi becomes the best game for the Genesis in a long, long time. Wow. The horseback, the jet ski, and riding are fantastic. It's actually a surfboard. And the bosses couldn't be better. One problem, though, it ends too soon by Steve Harris.
Interesting.
Personally, did you ever remember back in the day how big of a deal people made out of the fact that, like, if EGM gave a game a perfect score, it was supposed to be, like, a big deal? Do you remember that?
I remember, yeah.
So 9 out of 10, I would say, is for EGM, that's like a 10 out of 10 for most most magazines, in my opinion. Because there's only like 10 games that got a perfect score. And I remember Soul Calibur being one of them when the Dreamcast launched and being so hyped about it. I was just like, why even bother with PS2, man? We got a perfect score game on launch right here. And it's like, and Sonic Adventure? Okay. Oddly enough, more critics came from most of the critique came from Sega fan magazines. That a magazine called Sega Force Mega #4, which I'm assuming is a European magazine, gave the game a respectable 81% out of 100. The ancient art of ninja is not exactly a new theme to base a game on, and of course, we've all met Joe before. Despite this, Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master is a really playable game, combining plenty of mad ninja violence with a straightforward platform format. This may not be original, but it has to be ranked near the top of the pile of games of this type, Chris. While that was the most scathing review back then, so even then it was like, it got like a 89. If people rounded it all up, all these like reviews, it would get an 89% on Metacritic, which I would say it's about what Yakuza Like a Dragon is getting right now. So I would say it's highly acclaimed. While you could talk a little bit more about this part right here, but the games had many ports, but most of the ports had just been straightforward Sega Genesis ports, except for the 3DS version of M2's 3D Classics, which obviously added 3D, a round select mode, and they allowed you to customize your input buttons, which wasn't in the original because it was a 3-button controller layout. But There is a
Right.
cheat code where you could. There's a cheat code you could put on your Game Genie where you could set your buttons to what a 6-button controller, but it just never made it to the official product. But you could use it. It's in there. But yeah, you want to talk about the 3D one?
Yeah, I mean that's the one I own. It's the one I grew up with. Really, no, it's but
Yes.
yeah, it's decent. It's just when you look at what M2 did with the 3D classics, like with the Opa Opa Bros and all that kind of stuff, and like brand new game modes and everything, it's kind of disappointing in that sense because there isn't much that they did to it outside of some minor tweaks and additions, like you mentioned. Still, it's a solid game. It plays well in 3D if you like that sort of thing. And I would recommend people get that one. I do not think this game is on the Genesis Mini. You could correct me, but I don't think it is.
I don't. I haven't played it that much. I've been playing the original Sega Genesis. You guys, that's because I got an RGB cable for it recently. So now I'm like spoiling myself in like testing games. When you get a new cable, you're like taking out cartridges in and out. I also, I mean, not to like postpone the podcast, but I also got. I know you were against it, but I got a emulator ROM. I mean, for my thing where you can put everything on SD card, and I also got the mod for the HDMI built in that gives you 1080p image on the Dreamcast, just because I can record Dreamcast footage directly from the Dreamcast because my capture card won't do it. But yeah, whatever. I'm just happy right now with my retro stuff. I'm getting way more into retro, so I'm like, when I'm seeing people buy PS5s, I'm like, that's cool. I'm broke now, so. So, do you recommend that? I mean, like you said, it doesn't have that much extras. The extras are kind of like toss-aways. From what I read, it was It was like a pain in the ass to make this 3D. That's what I read.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah, but no, I recommend it. It's as a 3D classic, it's kind of disappointing, but as a game itself, it's a great game, so you can't go wrong. Yeah, definitely pick that up.
Should have came to the Switch, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's the end of the episode today, talking all things Shinobi 3, Return of the Ninja Master. We'll be back in 2 weeks, and Barry's going to be picking the next episode. So if you guys want something, probably bother him on Discord. Tell him everybody where do they get the
No.
See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.